What's up, everybody? Engage Podcast is back. It's Thursday. What is it? Wednesday. Listen, my days running together. This is what happens when you do shows a month out. But it is episode 24, and we're excited about this show. It is titled "The Next Generation of Black Male Educators." And in case you ain't seen the screen, it's just five brothers on the screen, and we about to talk education, and we're excited. But before we do that, got some housekeeping. So make sure you go and subscribe to our YouTube page, the Engage Podcast. Like the Facebook page, Engage Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Engage_podcast. And then this show, listen, when you tune in and you chat the show, I want you to use the hashtag BME Engage, Black Male Educator Engage. So again, use that hashtag when you share, when you like it. That's BME Engage. Make sure you share and like this. And we're about to jump right in. So we're going to start like we always start with check-ins. The first, 2 months of school. So I get it cracking. So how's the first 2 months of school been? It's been good. We are in year 3 of this COVID school year, which is has its challenges like the previous years. But definitely, I'm excited because this year we're putting rigor and student achievement back in the forefront. And that's what I'm most excited about. Well, yes, we are still keeping kids safe, but we are putting rigor and student achievement back in the forefront of everybody's mind. So that's principals and as teachers and as parents and as kids. We talking about whether kids are learning. And so I'm excited that we're able to been diving into this PD cycle over questioning and DOK levels with Sanders lately. And so ready for Friday, we got an all-staff PD. And so we're going to close the loop on this PD cycle on questioning. And so just excited about that. So that's my check-in for these 2 months of school. Who we got? Ball, man. What's been going on out there in Cali?
Whew, it's been wild, fellas. It's been wild. Just to let everybody in, my family, COVID actually started. And so really the last 3 weeks, the family's been impacted. Everybody's back and we're up on our feet and everything. And I tell you what, that was, it was a trying couple weeks for the school site. And, that old adage, when the principal gets a cold, the whole school gets a flu. Like, that was no joke. That was no joke, fellas, because I was laid up and I'm getting calls here and there, and what do we do with this? What do we do with that? And and it's funny because I've been back this week, and one of my new supervisors that helps us with lunch, he's like, you're like that police car that they just sit out in the shopping center. Like, ain't nobody in there. But, just your presence, Mr. Ball. We just need your presence. And so, that makes you feel real good. I mean, obviously, I don't want losing my staff making, feeling like I'm a police officer. But the bottom line is, we have an important role here at school. And when you're not here leading the show, things can go a little haywire. So, but I want to definitely give a shout out to my assistant principal, Miss Norris. She stepped up big time. I've been raving about her since I was able to bring her in last February, and she stepped up. She continues to step up. She continues to push me, ask all the right questions, and just has that mindset that you need as an instructional leader and as a school building leader. So just much love to Miss Norris and how she stepped up, and really all of my really stepped up in my stay last week. But I'm excited to get things going. We've got 7 new teachers, like brand new teachers on my campus. And so we are putting together a new teacher academy that we're starting next week. And so I'm excited to, have this conversation today because it's going to spark some ideas for me and my staff as we help support our youngsters. Doc, what you got? What's up? Go ahead.
Hey man, I'm glad you and the family doing well, man. But shout out definitely to your AP that stepped up, man, because I think you saw it posted up there, man. Hire your replacement. That AP is like that backup quarterback, right? You don't when that starter's gonna go down, but when they go down, you got to be ready. And so the good ones are always ready to step up. But man, we're definitely glad you and the family made it through it, and you back with your school family.
Appreciate it.
So what's up, fellas? Once again, yeah, boy, I'm glad you back, full force, rocking. So shout out to you and the family and the AP. We've had the AP shows. We talked about APs pretty much since we came on. So, man, it's been good. Dave talked about the PD cycle that they're in. We just started a cycle for us that we are in week 2 of, around tools to support active student engagement. So basically, me and my instructional coach went in last Thursday. We facilitated PD with each grade level, basically modeled to them what that active student engagement should look like, used a couple different structures. And then, Monday, when we started doing walkthroughs to start to see that stuff implemented, it just felt good to see that the work and the stuff that you did is actually being implemented in class and really pushing kids forward in that process. And then I got to shout out my team, my 2 APs and my instructional coach. I've been telling people, all week long, it feels good when you can, give somebody something and not have to worry about if it's going to get done or not. Like, no, it's going to be like you did it yourself. So shout out to my APs, Mr. Moore, Miss Williams, and then my brand new instructional coach, Miss Schaefer, who's out here doing their thing. And then, I'm about to, be on the road here soon. So it's good to have those people running things. So I'm going to Naptown in a couple months. And then I'm also going to be presenting a couple times for the Missouri Association of Elementary School Principals. And then I'm gonna be gone the first week of October to be a facilitator for the outdoor leadership experience for the Department of Education for Missouri. So, it's good to have people to run the show when you ain't here. So, but I'm super, super, super geeked about this show. We've been trying to get this show together for about 2 months now, and now we finally got some rock stars in the building. We've been talking about, Black male educators, and we always been asking that question of, why is it we can't get more Black male educators to go into education? And I think we got 2 rock stars who are going to talk about why they chose the field of education and then give us some insight on how we can get more Black male educators or Black males to go into the field of education. So we're going to give each one of them a few minutes to kind of just talk about themselves, give us their background. So we're going to start out with Mr. Joshua. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and just kind of your career aspirations.
What's good? What's good? My name's Josh Rivera. I am in the building. Excited to be here. Always excited to just be an inspiration for someone who's also listening and just to be with you guys. I love your energy as well. I'm here at KU majoring in music and education as my junior year. And what inspired me in being in music is just the fun of it. And also just being with being able to play music, something that I love. And the teaching of it is teaching others that really don't know of it and don't know the history of it and where it comes from as well and why they play it and everything like that and going in detail. What I grew up on was being in church, of course, that kid in church, always singing, always hearing the music and people getting excited for what they're doing. And so the only problem with it is just the hearing part. It was always coming to them. I was always coming to them and they're like, man, you just got to hear it. You got to go with, you got to feel it. And it's like, but do you know those chords? And it's like, nah, bro, we just playing. I'm like, oh, snaps. See, I think that's where the slip up is. I come to school, people now laughing and saying, you got to know the chord, man. You can have fun with it. The hard part is the ear. But of course, you gotta know what you're doing and actually teach somebody what you're doing, and that really opens your eyes even to the world and like hearing people, and that's just a big way of having fun as well with that. And I believe that's kind of enough about myself and why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, hold on, Josh, you didn't answer the question, man. Are you KK side? You KK side or what? There it is, right there.
KK or not? What? Dang! I don't know what KK side.
Hey, listen. All right, look. So those that don't know, KK side is it's a band fraternity, but it's huge in HBCUs, man. Like it's up there with the Divine Nine. So,
dang. Okay, I can give a shout out. I'm not in AK side, but I'm in Phi Mu Alpha. That's a men's fraternity. I'm gonna give him a shout, man. It's definitely a fun fraternity to be a part of. Definitely just hanging out. So. That's about it.
So we have our next guest, Mr. Javen Betts. Big shout out to Javen. I've been knowing Javen since his freshman year in high school. I remember I went to a career fair at their school. And he came up and talked to me. He was like, Dr. Smith, I want to be an educator. And we just connected and we've been kind of vibing ever since then. So Mr. Betts, go ahead and tell people a little bit about yourself. And then shout out to also Ashley, who I see in the comments.
Good evening, everybody. Big shout out again to Dr. Smith. Been a major mentor to me again since freshman year of high school. So I do appreciate him and all of your time on the show tonight. So I'm Javen Betts, as they said. I'm a junior here at the University of Kansas, majoring in elementary education and minoring in finance. So I do aspire to be a school district superintendent. And so that for me is big. I'm big on leadership, and I'm very involved here on campus. So just a few things that I'm involved in. I'm the newly elected Black Student Union president. So that's been an adventure this school year, trying to get that improved, implementing new initiatives, social outlets, and networking opportunities for our community here at KU, which is a predominantly white institution. I'm also the co-founder of an organization called Teach KU here. When I got here, there was no organizations for multicultural educators in the School of Education. And so I'm like, there was another Black male in our Black Student Union, and I'm like, why is there no organizations for what we aspire to do? They have, accountant organizations in the business school for people of color. And I'm like, why does the School of Education not have that? So if you don't see it, you should create it. And that's what we did. And that is to prepare future diverse educators to navigate a Eurocentric profession, essentially. And then I'm a multicultural scholar here on campus, and then an ambassador for our School of Education here at KU. So that's just a little bit about me and my leadership experience here. So
we're gonna just kind of jump in. So kind of give you a little history of the show. We started out basically over a year ago on Unc Show, who is the one in the background producing for us. And we did a show about Black male educators, Black male leaders, and really just talked about who inspired us. And we know what was it that caused us to go into education, and why did we want to be an educator? So we kind of just want to hear your story about like what inspired you to go into the field of education. Was it a teacher? Was it, a person, a situation, a circumstance? So just kind of talking about what was that inspiration? Because when we talk to a lot of Black male educators, they choose education as a secondary career because they usually went to college to do something else, and they kind of fall into education. But it sounds like from both of y'all kind of went in knowing that you wanted to be an educator from jump. So we just kind of want to hear what inspired you to go into the field of education. So we'll start with you, Mr. Betts.
So I have a few things that inspired me to go into the field of education. I knew what I wanted to do in high school. And people thought I was crazy because I said, this is what I want to do. They were like, oh, you'll change your mind 20 times before, you graduate college. And I'm like, no, I think I know what I want to do. And I'll say that it has been times that I've thought about detouring, but something always leads me back to what it is. And so I'll say first, I always knew I wanted to be in public service and leadership. And so education was that go-to for me. I come from a family of educators. So it really wasn't a big choice, to follow in their footsteps. And so that leads me to the second reason. My mom has been in education the past 25 years. So seeing her impact on the field of special education, specifically how she's built relationships and really motivated students and got results from special education students when people didn't even believe that special education was, something that was capable of being valued. So seeing her results made me want to be an educator, because if you can get a special education student to achieve to the highest level, you can do anything. And so that was really impactful for me. Also, the lack of representation. I am a product of the Kansas City, Kansas school district, proudly, an urban school district. And so the majority of our students were diverse, yet the staff did not reflect that. The staff was the opposite of the student population. So for me, that was important to see somebody that looked like me. We always had teachers that were from other areas that truly didn't understand us. They didn't understand our background. They were there because I guess, they were interested in education, but they didn't understand the students that they truly served. And so for me, that was big. And I wanted to be that representation for students. I wanted to combat systemic problems in education, which is why I aspire to go into leadership in education, because I think it's important to first get that foundation in the classroom, be the best classroom teacher that you can be, so that you can then mentor other professionals and have that background knowledge to be able to combat those systemic issues in education. And then lastly was the disparities between urban and suburban schools. So I always, was interested in the urban schools because I'm a product of the urban schools. The connotation that we get is oftentimes negative. Those students aren't deserving. Their parents aren't active in their schooling or education. The expectations are low when you come in because you, again, don't understand the students that you're serving or their potential. So the disparities between that and the low expectations that some of our teachers had was what drove me to education as well.
For myself, man, I love that what Javen said. Definitely just opened my mind even more on what I should think about and put my hands towards or put my head to. But for myself, I was in high school. Definitely didn't have music and education on my mind. Even education, of course, in high school, I was all about sports, cross country. I've gotten offered to a school for sports and running and things like that. And I want to do architecture like my family. My dad's a construction worker and my mom as well. But thing for it is they didn't have that college experience, of course. So for me, it's a first generation coming into college. Definitely was an eye opener. I was, again, a transfer student at Washburn. I went to Washburn for my first time because of my teacher who told me, Dr. Prost at Leavenworth High, was telling me that it would be a great school just because of the class size. But for me, I didn't know to look in the rates of that. I kind of just went with it. But then I would say, to go back, a guy who told me I really could shout him out, Christopher Burnett, told me, I mean, for you being at Washburn and being the skin color that you have can do something different. Of course, they're going to look at you different. And that's kind of all I was kind of motivated to do. But music, again, wasn't what I thought was for me. It's either the sport thing. But getting into there kind of opened my eyes on actually seeing the perspective for music and what it stands for, like theory and all that, and where that comes from and how that plays into music. Really got went into detail on some things on what I should study on and kind of take hands on. But moving from there here to KU really opened my eyes as well. Again, just my sisters and brothers went here. My brother went here for architect. My sister went here for dance and things like that. I was really just looking towards it as being a follower, but then not being a follower, if that would make sense. Just the hype and the communication and connection. And I believe Washburn was that for me, but just the hype was not there for me, if that would make sense, just for the music and the uplift. What led me here in the question thing? I kind of got mixed up with the question. If you can remind me.
What has inspired you to go into education? What was it that kind of got you into the field of education? So you on the right track.
Okay. I was coming off, I think. So what inspired me? Can I shout out again? Christopher Burnett inspired me. Again, for jazz, people again go by ear, and I've learned that very much in church. And again, just having fun with that. People would say, hey, the chord, let me hear like a C major scale. Let me hear like your B major scale. I was at a young age and didn't know what that was. So of course it's a funny action to laugh at somebody for it, but then come back to them and they'd be like very surprised that you actually gone to college and actually studied that. And now you're like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. I want him to play with me. But again, there's not many of us out there. And I would say from the summertime, what even brought me back to doing music, the same guy, Christopher Burnett, I went into his jazz program. And on the ride back, he gave me a talk about a story about Charlie Parker, a man definitely inspired in Kansas City who who's really known. When I came to KU, a guy kind of told me that he was a guy for jazz, but he was hooked on heroin, a guy who was on drugs. And I told my teacher that, and he was like, that's kind of all what, people who don't know very much about jazz, our culture. So they're not reading the right books. That's just what they're telling us. So that's what I kind of moved back, and I was like, okay, they're whipping out some words to make us look bad. But really, it was just him going into the hospital and being on to that, hooked onto that for what has happened in his past. But he was just getting at the point of there's just not enough of us that's in this education world for music, and it's kind of dying down. And they say, of course, to go to an HBCU school, but then, of course, coming to even a predominantly white school, it still needs to be an uplift in where we're at. So for me, that's just my energy and bringing that into jazz and even into classical. And I believe with playing even classic music can inspire somebody to also be inspired to do that teaching in a way, to also understand and get that practice in, if that makes sense as well. That's all I have for it.
So, appreciate y'all sharing that kind of, that inspiration piece. So now, if you could just talk about kind of like projecting out, what's your trajectory? What is it that you kind of want to see yourself doing in education? Next moves, and then kind of the long range plan for what you want to do in education. So, whichever one you want to kind of jump in with that question first.
I can go ahead and start. So, my trajectory is something that I always speak on. So this now is just at the forefront of my brain. So next steps after college, I aspire to again be a good foundation teacher, and really getting that foundation of being an instructional leader. So because I don't think you can be a leader or a respected leader if you yourself is not a good classroom teacher or not a good classroom teacher. So I want to be respected when I am a instructional leader. So that is important for me to go in and really get the basics of teaching and relationship building and turnaround work, because I am interested in turnaround work. It's a hard job, but I think I'm up for the challenge. And then after that, I aspire to be in grad school at the same time that I'm teaching, and then getting my master's in educational leadership and policy, and then hopefully move into an administrative role, and then applying to a EDD program in leadership and policy analysis with a superintendent certificate. So then I can just move into district level leadership. And then my ultimate goal after being a superintendent is to be able to go into private consulting, and maybe even working for the U.S. Department of Education to work as a school district improvement officer, and do consulting work around the U.S. for districts that need improvement. So,
I got a question, Don. Hey, how old are you, Javen?
I'm 20.
Hey man, when I was 20, bro, I was not thinking about any of that. Okay. So shout out to you, man, for real. No, real talk, for having that clear vision, man, like step by step. Because I mean, listen, when I was 20, first of all, I just became an alpha when I was 20. So that's a story for another day. I knew I wanted to get into teaching, man, but I wish, right, that not only me, but even other, and not educators, but Black men in college right now have that type of forethought of like the things that they want to do step by step. Because as long as you know where you want to go, you're not going to allow things to knock you off that trajectory, man. So shout out to you, man, for being clear on that vision and speaking it, because that's the main thing, right? Like you speaking it and sharing it with the world and putting it out there. And so shout out to you for that, man. But make sure within that you have some fun, because you only get to be in your 20s once. I just want you to know that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Josh, how about you?
Oh yeah, definitely. If you haven't seen Drumline, that's what the goal is, to be on an HBCU stand and being in Atlanta, maybe probably just being in the HBCU. really, really hope to be a director, even on the side. I want to be either a choir director for a college or an assistant for a college for marching band. Even if it's for pep bands, I don't care. I just love the blasting of those trombones, of course, or the saxophones for jazz bands. I could be an instructor for that. But for that, the latter there, I'll start here with my bachelor's and then go off to Boston and get my master's. I think it's Boston University. I'll go up to there to get my master's in music, and then come kind of in the area or just see where that goes, to be honest, because it is kind of a struggle to then get your tests out the way and get your conducting exams out the way and see if you can go for that PhD. So it can't be that struggle for me. So that's about it. Hopefully that lands me in the direction or somebody looking at me to be like, okay, you can tag along and be a part of this band, and also be in that setting still behind an orchestra or something like that, or an assistant. So
just know, Josh, Atlanta A&T is not a real school. Okay.
it is.
Hey, no, for real though. Like, what instruments do you play though? On the real, like, what instruments do you play?
I play the tenor sax. That's my main instrument, and secondary would be voice. I can sing as well.
Okay. And you doing any practicums or anything right now in schools or stuff like that?
Practicums meaning?
Are you getting the experience in schools?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm coming into. I'm getting a little talk with the principal at Warren Middle School down there just to see if I can sit in, and then trying to get some lessons from here and there with some that are kind of like conducting classes. I would say if that's a practicum to kind of get that feel of beginning band. So, but I'm in that level of wanting to teach in the high school and college levels. So.
Well, if you want to drive down to Kansas City, I just hired a black male band teacher. So if you want to drive down to Kansas City to my school, I can definitely get you some time in there with him. So just let me know. Hit me up.
Please.
Man.
I kind of want to add on to David and out to both of you, Josh and Javen. Having that clear vision is huge, and that is going to take you a long way, because and one of the things that I found out personally, the more I communicate what my goals are, the more often I find out folks around, what is this?
Here we go.
Super producer. What is going on here? We're trying to have a serious discussion.
Hey. So anyway, now that I know the direction of the show, go ahead, Bob.
So before we go, whatever that was, I just want to say, there's people that will show up ready to support you. That's one of the things that I found. When you communicate what your goals are, you continue to put yourself in situations where you can reach those goals. There's going to be folks that are going to be out there asking for you and supporting you. So that's all I wanted to say. I think that, where are we?
Well, look, so I'm gonna bring us back. So super producer, if you could put that last comment up there, because I was literally thinking this when Josh was talking. When he was talking about wanting to get into music and things like that. So the comment says, she's loving the music talk. I played the flute from age 7 to 16. Too bad there aren't enough arts programs in the schools. Listen, I'm telling you, those arts programs are much needed in schools, particularly when you have schools of students of color, because sometimes that's the anchor that's going to help a kid in other subjects, right? In math and ELA, because they have something to look forward to. But that's where kids' hidden talents are. So again, Josh, you're in a great situation to infuse the love back into music, right? Because listen, some of the best teachers in the history of our people came from the church. Those Sunday school teachers were some of the best teachers in the neighborhood, right? That preacher was one of the best teachers within that community, man. So shout out to you, definitely, for sure, for both of y'all, really. But I definitely want to highlight that piece of the arts, man. Get those black boys playing tenor, sax, flute, the trombone, the violin, all those things, man. So both I keep striving, man. But definitely appreciate that and wanted to highlight that comment.
Just one more thing with the whole arts component. So I listen to Sirius XM. I don't know if you're familiar with the series. Channel 126 has some live shows on there. Karen Hunter is one of my favorite. He had a young man on, Kevin Jackman. Are you familiar with him? He's kind of he's in social media. Keats Did It is his social handle on TikTok and Instagram, but he's in the sciences and he raps the plays. But check him out on social media. It sounds like a similar background to you, and he's in that, but he's not in the education. He's a content creator full time right now. So just want to throw that out there.
So I do want to talk about, because one piece that Javen brought up, he talked about representation and how that matters, and one of the things I want to highlight on, Javen probably not going to, probably brag on himself, but Javen went to Sumner Academy in KCK, which is the top high school in Kansas, one of the top, I believe, top 10 high schools in the country, a college preparatory school that you have to test to get into as well. And he was a leader on campus there as well. But he talked a lot about representation and how there was a lack of belief from teachers in him. And you just think he went to one of the top schools in the top school in the state, and he felt that way. So just imagine the other kids who are not going to those top schools and how they feel about the teachers that standing in front of them in their classroom. My daughter went to the same school with him. That's how, me and Javen actually met. And that's one of the things that I would always tell people that about Sumner Academy, and no knock on Sumner Academy, but I just feel like the teachers in my building would teach circles around those teachers, because those teachers didn't know how to teach, because they felt like if you didn't want to learn, we just send you back to another school. We don't have to really sit here and teach you. So, but I want you both to kind of just, if you could just real quickly, I know Javen talked about it, but Josh, if you could talk about from your standpoint of the importance of representation in education, especially Black male representation.
I was just going to piggyback then with the school as well. Not knocking hard on Leavenworth High at all, but I came into jazz in high school, and it was mind blowing for me because jazz wasn't even my thing, but I made it my thing and it became fun. But the thing about it is then being in church and knowing how to do all that, knowing the blues scale and stuff like that. But the thing is that my director was white. So what he had done, not to knock on him or nothing like that, he was having fun as well. He loved it. He loved jazz, but he did not know what those chords were either. So what he had done is invited a guy in, and his name was Christopher Burnett. He taught me and the class some things about chords and where they're going. Again, a Black man coming in to teach jazz. So it's just like kind of knocking down the actual man who actually knew what, jazz, and say, oh my gosh, this is my jazz band, bringing them to competitions. And for the Black man being in the background to be like, okay, well, I taught this kind of stuff. And you're playing the music that I taught the kids. So I feel like that should be well known or brought out, because now in the summer, he's taken advantage of even bringing up his own thing with music and teaching the kids what the root is, what the second dominant and things like that is, because it's getting lost with someone who is white, who's teaching something that they have no kind of privilege over. Because you think of it, Charlie Parker and I can name them off, Charlie Parker and Jamie, not Jamie Foxx, Charlie Parker and other saxophonists. I have them off the back of my hand, but all those saxophonists played those notes just because of what they felt and what they were going through back in those days. And it brought them out in the way of slavery and all that. And it's just like, oh my gosh, they take advantage of that and switch it around. And it's just kind of putting us in that blind mode, and it's just like, okay. And it's like, you can't really teach it, and you got to feel it. That's all you have to do. You got to feel it and have fun with it. And that's not what they're doing. They're just like, oh, you got to read it. This is how you got to do it, which is cool. But then it's like, okay, what is the bottom of this? Why do they play that? And that's what he goes over. And that's what I kind of want to do. And what motivated me is to bring that out in the world and to make that program to teach those the real thing, about why they play that and what's their background, playing that. I believe there's a lady who also inspired me from last year. She came into KU and talked about what the player like Charlie Parker, what's his background, instead of just playing their piece. And that really broke down. I almost broke down, because that goes into so much to just play somebody's piece and not even recognize them. It's hard to be like, okay, well, this is Charlie Parker, let's just play it. And you're playing it with so much rhythm, so much, oh, this is good. But then it's just like, okay, but what did that dude do? Like, talk about why he played that, So going back into high school, that's what lifted me up to also just do that in college. Cause I feel like, again, if I know that, and if I know in detail and not just know just, what's in what a white man is telling me, but really know, but what is the book, the real book is telling me, like the background of somebody's story, and telling me what they're actually going through, and why I'm even in music. What's the importance of playing music if there's no cause? Like, so the guy who's Christopher Burnett is like, the reason why you need to play music is because this is our heritage. This is our culture. This is what got us out of slavery, so it's just like, to bring that down and not talk about it, it's kind of like they're blindfolding us, like, again, to not even see that, just to be like, okay, this is just somebody, give us a summary of it or a sliver of it. It's kind of they're kind of getting away of that race in a way. Not to say race, they don't even touch it. They're not trying to even touch it because it gets so deep. It gets so deep. And I'm just mad because it's just like, man, I want to know about this, man. I want to know about this girl who is singing Fitzgerald, why she is singing that, why she has so much tone in her voice. And it's just like, well, we don't want to tell you that reason, because they just know the bad things and not the good things, really. So that's why I'm here. I want to know the truth, and I want to know why I'm here right now. So to play music, and I'm sure that's what a lot of people are out there for. And they're gonna, if they get that truth, it's gonna go so far to where people are just like, shoot, I don't even know why we even took advantage of that. Yeah, you look stupid because it's our stuff. So that's all I have to say for it.
And then, Jay, I would if you could hit it more on that representation, but I do want you to also hit upon, because when I first talked to you, you want to be a social studies teacher, but you said you have recently switched over to elementary. And my boy David McGuire is the principal of Tinley Summit Elementary School out in Naptown, one of the top schools out there. So just talk about like the reason why you switched over, and and the importance of representation at the elementary level. And then I want David to kind of talk about that as well, since he's an elementary principal, that representation at the elementary level as well.
So this was something really that took a lot of thought. I had to consult with a lot of, my mentors, and I had to consult with my mom and family members, and had to pray about it, because I really thought that, high school was where I wanted to be. I just wanted to be in secondary. And it was kind of the stigma. Well, you're a Black male, you just need to teach the higher levels, because that's really where we see males. And then if we see a Black male educator, they're usually in the secondary realm. But then I had people talk to me, and then I prayed about it, and I wasn't happy in the programs that I was in. So I started off secondary social studies, and I thought I liked social studies, but then I found out, well, you just are interested in Black history. And that really was not near touched on in the program. So I was in for a rude awakening for that. And then I said, well, maybe English, because I had a very impactful English teacher in high school, and I loved reading and writing. And then I got into that, and I'm like, no, I'm still not fulfilled. And then I switched over to the elementary ed program, and the classes just fulfilled me. I just had a sigh of relief. I went in and shadowed in elementary classrooms, and I just really, really felt that I needed to be there. One, there is literally absolutely no male representation, and then Black male representation at all. And I had this experience this summer that really solidified my decision. I was a camp counselor for our local community college, partnered with this non-for-profit organization that I've been interning with the past few years. And it's serving underprivileged children in District 500, which is the Kansas City, Kansas public schools. And so they put me at a site that didn't have any behavior issues, but then there was this site that had major behavior issues. It was 15 males that were of color, and they had 2 female counselors. And so the director asked me, like, out of nowhere, like, would you mind if we just switched you over here? We need male representation. The kids, the behavior problems are just atrocious. And at first I was like, why me? Like, why are you switching me? There was no other camp counselors that could go. But it ended up being an opportunity. It really was an opportunity for me. And it was actually a blessing that I got switched over there. At first, it was, again, the first day we had about 10 fights when I walked in. But by the end of the summer, we had built such bonds, or I had built such bonds with the boys that they literally were sad because they thought I was getting a new job. And I was like, I should have. No. But it was just so impactful for me. And just talking to them, building those relationships, and really setting that presence right there was it for me. And I knew that was where I belong. So,
Man, that story about elementary as a black male. So as mentioned, I'm a principal at elementary school, and I got to definitely give some flowers to Miss Kelly Marshall, who was also shouted out on 8 Black Hands this past Sunday. But when she was my CEO, man, she pulled me from a middle school and put me in an elementary school, and just was talk to me about the importance of these black boys and these black girls, and even the white girls and the white boys seeing a black male as their leader at that age, right? And just the power that comes with that at that early age to see a black male leader. One of the biggest regrets I have now is that when I did student teaching for 4th grade. I quit after a day and switched to secondary. I was like, nah, these little kids ain't for me. But as I look back, I wish I would have stayed. The joy of the times I've been able to get into a classroom when teachers have been out and teach, man, I love teaching elementary, man. Like I could imagine having my own class with my own set of 25 kids the whole school year and growing those bonds that you don't get in high school because you just have kids rotating out, right? You never get to lock in with that core group. And so there's just power with that you can shape these kids, and kids never forget their elementary teachers, right? Whether it's 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd, 4th, they never forget those elementary teachers. Those middle school and high school teachers, I mean, if they were impactful, you remember them, but you know who your 3rd grade teacher is because you probably only had one, right? You know who your 4th grade teacher is because you probably had that one. And so, man, definitely shout out to you. Stick with elementary because that foundational is key. We got too many kids, and Doc and Ball can tell you going into middle schools, they can't read, they can't add and subtract 2-digit numbers. Hell, can't even abstract 1-digit numbers, but they didn't get that foundation. Somebody then pour in them the love of reading, the love of math, the love of science, the love of social studies, the love of music, right? And all that starts at that foundation, man. We got to put kids on the right trajectory to be successful in school. And if kids have a terrible elementary experience, the likelihood of them enjoying school is a lot smaller. So definitely shout out to you, man, and peace and blessings on that elementary thing.
Thank you. And something else I wanted to add real quick with representation was it just came to me. I had a teacher again that was impactful in high school, and she always told me that representation matters in the schools with students that do not look like you as well. So for those students, I wanted to put that out there, is that I do have a passion for the inner city schools and the kids that the majority of the student population resembles me, but there's also those students that look like us in those suburban districts that need us as well. And representation matters there as well. So I just wanted to add that.
Hey, and yeah, we got a stand offer for both of y'all in Indianapolis. We got everything you need. It's a great place to raise a family. We got beautiful women, one of which was in the timeline earlier. And it's just plenty of them, and we're growing. We hosted the Super Bowl. We got the national championship this year. I mean, you listen. Indy's that sleeper, man. Folks be sleeping on Indy. So Doc goes in November. But hey, for real, whether it's a job or not, I definitely will say, man. I know all of us, and I can probably speak for the fellas too, man. Whatever y'all need, I know Doc's already played a huge role. But whatever y'all need, man, to support you on this journey, I want to make sure that we can support you, be a thought partner. But yeah, definitely got. There you go, family in Indiana, man. If you ever want to move to Indy, man, at Naptown, man,
amen.
It's a city that actually never sleeps. But anyway, but yeah, definitely.
Hey, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out because I'm touching down on November 3rd. We touching down. So
and it's going down, man. We're gonna go to Sunset. Oh, sorry, wrong show. My bad.
Hey, so So Dave, you did hit upon something though, talked about, basically, extending that arm out. So I want to hear from, you young fellas, kind of two things. And we kind of round it up. We got about 15 minutes left on the show, but I do want to touch on two things. One is, why is it that more Black males aren't going into education? I know within your circles that you deal with, and like you said, Javen, a lot of people try to talk you out of it. So just what are some of the things that you're hearing on why Black males aren't choosing the field of education? Because like I said, we have our thoughts, and the people that we believe, we talk to, but we want to hear directly from you, because that's your circle that you run with. But then also, what is it that us, older generation, what can we do to kind of reach back and help y'all along your path as you kind of move into the field of education?
I'll go ahead and start. So I wrote a few things down with that. So I guess what I can speak to first is the Black males not going into education. And I've really been studying this. Like, why don't they? I don't see anybody that looks like me in my class. But it really comes down to Black males generally have negative experiences within their K through 12 schooling experience. And so when you go to school from kindergarten through 12th grade and you have a negative experience, why would you want to go back and teach in a school? Like, I just want to get away from school. I've had a negative experience for all these years. I've had nothing but people dictating orders to me. Why would I want to go back and spend the rest of my life in a school building or in the realm of education? So that's there. And that goes with representation. We have nobody that can truly connect to us, which then is a chain reaction of why we have these negative experiences, because we are instructed by people who don't really understand us. So then we're misunderstood, and then that then creates discipline problems. They, label us as a disciplinary problem, and then which then directly affects the discipline rates. You see that Black males are suspended at much higher rates than anybody else in a school building. So then when you have these things going on, these negative experiences propel Black males away from the field of education. Also, the salary scare. And I see a lot of this in college because people have been conditioned to go after money instead of passion and impact. And I see that in at KU, but in college in general, is that people are following money, and then they end up miserable. And so there's no mentors that are there to really talk them through that process of impact and passion. And so then they really go into a field that they're not really passionate about, which they would be bomb educators, but because they didn't have any mentorship, they then lose that fire in which they really could have been an impactful educator. And I think they need more people to tell you that the money will come. You have to follow your passion. And if you have passion, the money will follow. And then we're not exposed to the field of education like we are all these other fields. I remember when I went to shadow Dr. Smith in his building, something that he said that stuck with me is that why do we not have a education career pathway in our high schools? Like, that's important. They have the medical field, they have business, all of these things, but they don't have. We're educators. We're educating children, but then why are we not proud of our profession? So then that directly impacts why you wouldn't choose it as well. Because if you see your educators constantly bashing the profession, why would I want to go into it? So then there's that. Those are my reasonings for why, a lot of Black males aren't going into the field. And then as I talk toward how we can get more in the field is hosting podcasts like this and those uncomfortable conversations that really allow you to do that critical thinking about your passion and the impact you want to have if you want to go into public service. So we need people that will introduce them to the profession that resembles them, such as like a conference, Amplify and KC is something that I've really been looking at. And I think that is like so awesome that our educators of color come together and then celebrate our profession. Celebrate that is a big thing for me. And then allowing them in buildings when you're in these positions. So giving back, mentorship, allowing other Black males to come in and see what's going on in the classrooms, your buildings, in the district level. All of that is so important because we need that direct field experience to be able to really resonate with us and the impact that we want to have. Also, again, just being a mentor in a Eurocentric field. Something when I went to the Black Student Government Conference 2 years ago for the Big 12, one of the speakers was saying that everybody needs a mentor and sponsor. And so we really need mentors. And what she termed a mentor as is someone that looks like you, that you can be vulnerable with in the profession that you want to go into. So we really need mentors to give us the lowdown on this is what you're up against. So, as David said, as an elementary principal, he, as a mentor, he would really like let me know what I'm up against as I'm applying for elementary positions and what to look out for with staff demographics and how you navigate those systems and things like that, which all educators could do, but you can't really do it unless you resemble me and it resonate with me. And then, so yeah, that's all I really had.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that Javin has said. With first starting off with the mindset of you have to have that positive mindset, of course, and always I would say just the mindset is a problem, maybe just to start with the problem first and then doing a solution. And mindset is definitely hearing from others, and that again is culture of maybe your background. If your mom hasn't done it, then you can't do it. If your dad didn't do it, you can't do it. Or if your mom and dad are not together, what makes you think that you can't or you can go into college? It's things like that, or a word like that definitely gets those black people now and not going into schools, or just only seeing videos that are bad. I think when I grew up, it was just like, oh my gosh, seeing with somebody of a disability was just like, oh, definitely, I don't want to have that in my class or something like that. Just seeing the bad side of it, just like actually, there's a good side of it. You get to teach them how to do good, and how to get them to where they need to be at, in the world. And that includes music. You're only seeing people who's failing at music, of a man that's black, you only seeing him fail and not succeeding. So it's just like, well, actually, he made a music. He made a whole album. Actually, you come to college and he made albums upon albums to this man who's now getting money off of that. And it's just like people like that definitely, again, is not teaching that history, and they're only teaching the bad things. So just being able to ask that question of actually going into that deep in detail of what happened to that person. I see it again. So then also I would say money as well with Javin. People coming into school just thinking, okay, I need to come in just for the money, and just going in for money. Not really the thing. Again, just chasing after your passion and doing what's right. And again, telling in the positive way, it's not because of time. Again, having these podcasts are really uplifting. I'm also trying to start a podcast here on KU campus to encourage those that has accomplished those little things, getting those awards, a football player getting a touchdown or getting a tackle and actually announcing his name in the radio show, even, just to invite him and talk about those things. What encouraged you to come here to KU, and what's your biggest dream? Where do you see yourself in the future? And who inspired you? Some of the questions that you guys have really have uplifted me to do more or see more in the world. So that, and also telling them what to do for their application, of a resume. Javen, he had invited in some people who was a part of construction, having them coming in and speaking to BSU about how to set up a resume, also what to do to to get your name out here, to get those connections. And I think that's just also another plan and trying to succeed as a Black man in the world or a Black woman in the world. And also asking those questions to the teachers as well. Another thing is also, I think that's it for me right now. David, you got it all, my man. Good stuff.
Hey, Josh, as you work to get that podcast up and jumping, make sure you hit David up. David does another podcast, one of the biggest in the nation, called the Recess Podcast. So he could definitely give you some pointers on getting that going.
And I was gonna say I got a producer for you, but
no.
you might get the random photos. But look, so we're almost at an hour. So we always close the show with closing thoughts, and so we're gonna definitely let our guests. I'm gonna go. Doc's gonna go. We're gonna let you go, Ball. You're gonna bring us home. But so I'm gonna start off with closing thoughts. I'll say this, and we're talking about Black male educators, and we talk about the need to get more Black male educators. Let me tell you where it starts, though. It starts with making sure that these Black men, these Black boys, have a positive school experience. Because why would I want to go back to the place that caused me so much trauma? And so when you wonder why we can't get Black men into school, well, think about their, like was mentioned, their own K-12 experience, that trauma that they had there. Why would they want to go back into that? So if we can make school K-12 experience positive for Black males, then we're more likely to get Black males that want to go into teaching. So that's my closing thoughts, man. Stop turning school into a trauma for kids, particularly Black boys.
So my final thought is going to be, and then after we're going to let Josh do his final thought, then Javen, and then Ball will kind of wrap it up for us. But my final thought is, it's refreshing to hear young Black men talk about, education and changing the field of education. It was, almost, 20 years ago that I started this journey into education. And now I sit on the other side where I'm reaching back and helping other young men do some of the things that I did, all those years ago. So it's refreshing to hear that. And then one thing that's going to really stick with me, and I think Javen said it, best, don't chase money, chase passion and impact. And, I feel like that's, what I'm trying to do for the rest of my life, is just go after my passion, my impact, and, the money going to find you. So that's my final thought. I appreciate you fellas coming on, man. Hey, Javen, man, you continue to make me proud, bro. I'm just glad to be a part of your circle.
Javen, you got closing thoughts?
Oh, okay. So I want to first start by thanking all of you for allowing me the opportunity on here. This was simply amazing. We need spaces like this to be able to talk authentically about the field and the profession, and how we are really valued in this profession, and getting more people excited about going into the field of education. And so my closing thoughts would be to first seek opportunity, and then don't forget to give opportunity to those that once gave to you. So making sure I'm all about giving back. I have been blessed to be able to have such great mentors. I am just so grateful for my village. Like Dr. Smith said, he's been with me since freshman year of high school. So dating all the way back then, I'm just grateful for that and the opportunities. I can't wait to embark on the journeys that I'm going on and those future opportunities. And my biggest excitement is going to be on the flip side and giving back. So.
Man, I would also like to say thank you guys for having me on here. It definitely opened my mind up more, just of what to look out for in the world. Jaden, you taught me something. All you guys taught me something, and that's something I would always want to leave with. And that's always something in the classrooms that I was taught about, is just never come in as, or how they say it in church too, never come in and not, go out with something you feeling different, to tell somebody else, or you have that burning fire to tell somebody else that you learned something. So I definitely taking advantage of that. The saying that I was always turned by was, I'd rather be prepared for the opportunity, and when the opportunity come and not be prepared. So for those that are struggling right now into the education, when that does come to you, you have to be prepared instead of just lacking off. Or then when that opportunity comes, just sleep on it and say, okay, well, the schoolwork, of course, I got that down. on, but then you sleep on that as well. Just keep up with your schoolwork, and it'll get better and better as you go on. That's all I have for now.
All right, fellas, I'm going to close it out. I just want to thank Javen and Josh. Thank you so much for joining us. Just like Doc said, it's so refreshing to hear the passion in your voices, because we need that. We're at an interesting time in education right now, going through this pandemic. Year 3 of a pandemic, and there's teacher shortages all over the place. We need the motivation, we need the passion, and I'll just say, we talked a little bit about the history that we've had as Black people in education. I encourage everyone that's listening, our kids out there, we have conditions of success that get but let's have conversations, continue the dialogue, and let's continue it, because excellence is out there, and we have a long legacy of that, and everybody in this podcast is part of that, and we're continuing on the tradition that was laid before us. So just a shout out to y'all, positive vibes, and let's continue to set the example for Black males.
So look, man, y'all gotta make sure we just what? And I'm
Rue.
Anyway, listen, y'all. We want to thank both of y'all for coming on again. This has been episode 24. Shout out to hey Doc Smith. Shout out to you, man, for putting it together, for bringing these brothers on. We appreciate you. So I'm gonna go ahead and name it now. I'm producing the October show. It's called The Truth About Being a Black Male Educator, featuring the super producer. Ray Anchor is going to be on live with us, so you already know it's going to be buzzing. So be on the lookout for the official date for that. Obviously, it's going to be a Wednesday in October, looking around October 22nd or October 27th. But again, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That's coming up left. But definitely peace and blessings to both of y'all. Make sure you subscribe to this page, share, tag this. And if you want to reach out, Josh, Jamin, how can folks reach out to you, man? They want to send you some positive vibes. Maybe send you some ramen noodles or something, man. Well, how can folks reach out to you, man? Real quick. So just give you maybe an email address or something we can share, Twitter handle, whatever, so folks can reach out. If you want to just drop that in the chat real quick, we'll share that out so folks can reach out to you. But this has been a Engage Podcast. We'll see you in a month. Peace, everybody.
Go Mob.